everybody, Tyrone the God 3 here, and unless you've been living under a rock for the past few months, you'll know that the Dragon Ball franchise is being greeted with a really excellent looking game coming out later in 2018 known as Dragon Ball FighterZ. Now, while the title seems kind of weird, the premise is going to be really good because it's a Dragon Ball game created by Arc System. Now, Arc System has made Dragon Ball games before, actually. I know Super Dragon Ball Z is one of the games they made, and they also recently came up with the 3DS game Dragon Ball Z Extreme Budoten. So, Extreme Budoten actually, if you played it, seems a lot closer to Dragon Ball FighterZ than Super Dragon Ball Z was. In fact, I never even got the luxury to play Super Dragon Ball Z. But I do own Extreme Budoten, and it is a lot like what we're seeing here in Dragon Ball FighterZ. The difference being that Extreme Budoten seems a lot more like a button masher, whereas Dragon Ball Z FighterZ looks like it's going to be, or excuse me, Dragon Ball FighterZ, like I said, weird title, seems like it's going to be a lot more associated with the primary fighting games, the arcade system fighting games, much like King of Fighters, and Street Fighter, and Blaze Blue, more along the lines of that. And it's actually really good to see that we're probably going to have a really big competitive Dragon Ball Z head-to-head fighter game. Now, a lot of people who are like, oh, well, what about the Budokai games? Budokai 1, 2, and 3, and things like that, or even to a lesser extent, Ultimate Battle 22? Those were head-to-head fighters, but they were not in the same league as these competitive arcade-style head-to-head fighters, where button precision means everything. Frame rate, combos, chains, things like that. These are going to be very important things that are going to be used in this game and are going to play a big role in this game. And the reason that I'm making this video now is to show off the fact that there's going to be characters in this game, obviously, but a lot of people are expecting the character roster to be this huge thing like it was in Budokai Tenkaichi 3, and I'm here to tell you what I think is going to be the most reasonable character roster for this game based on what is happening. Now, obviously, we've already got revealed a lot of the characters that are going to be in Dragon Ball FighterZ. We've got Goku, Vegeta, Teen Gohan, Fat Boo, Frieza, Cell, Piccolo, Krillin, and Future Trunks. Piccolo and Future Trunks Piccolo and Krillin, excuse me, were revealed in 2 scans, so we already know they're going to exist. And then we got Future Trunks in a trailer, so we already know he's in. Those are the 3 characters that are actually going to be in the beta when you play the beta once it comes out. And then that'll get a lot of players ready to play the game when it comes out in 2018. So I made this video, and I'm going to make another part to this video, basically going over a lot of the characters that I think should be in Dragon Ball FighterZ that makes for a reasonable roster. Now, if you're expecting me to name off a billion characters, then I'm sorry to tell you, this isn't the video for you. The reason I say this is because Arc System is known for making games that don't have a cluster crap load of characters, but they do have balance. Each of the characters are unique, they're original, they have something that makes that character stand out, or they have a play style that works for them. Where I'm getting most of this data from is from the Blaze Blue series. I play a lot of Blaze Blue. I played Continuum Shift, I played Chrono Phantasm, I played Calamity Trigger. I played a lot of the Blaze Blue games, and Blaze Blue games are very popular in Japan, and they are one of the primary games made by Arc System that are just really good to play. And Dragon Ball FighterZ looks like it's not too far off from that system. So Blaze Blue on average usually carries about 30 characters at the most, with the inclusion of some DLC characters here and there if you buy their packs or you buy the characters themselves. So it's gonna be something interesting to see what roster is going to take place here in Dragon Ball FighterZ. Now, there's going to be obvious characters on this list, but I'm going to talk about those characters very briefly and how they should be portrayed in the game. So first off, we're going to tackle the characters that already exist, and then I'll go down the line even further with some characters I think should be in the game, and then we'll stop at a midpoint. And like I said, I will be making a second part to this video. That way it doesn't end up being too long. So let's get the obvious one out of the way, Goku. Goku's the main character. Of course, he's going to be in it. He's in the game. game. He was shown off in the playthroughs. You can see him in E3 and everything. Goku, obviously, he's fighting as his Super Saiyan 1 stage. The reason they're doing this is because this is the way Goku is portrayed very easily in Dragon Ball Z. They've done this a lot of times in other games of his, like I know Dragon Ball Z Extreme, but Doten has him as his Super Saiyan form, but they don't have his other forms, with Super Saiyan 3 being an ultimate form that he takes when he does attacks like Super Kamehameha or things like that. So that goes without saying that Super Saiyan Goku and Super Saiyan 3 Goku are going to be in the game, obviously, because Super Saiyan is Goku's standard for the form, with his base form only being shown once he does his victory pose. And then Super Saiyan 3 being used for ultimate attacks. That's an obvious one. As far as costume changes, Blaze Blue is known to have a lot of costume changes in their games that actually make them look a lot like the Guilty Gear characters, because Guilty Gear is closely related to Blaze Blue and they were both made by Arc System. So it's not too far off to say that Goku may have some costume changes that may relate him to another character. The first one that comes to mind is Goku Black. There will more than likely be a costume change of Goku that makes him look like Goku Black, as a way to exclude Goku Black from being in the game. And then I also do have another alternative for what may happen with Goku Black in terms of this game, but that's if the game is willing to go that route. Vegeta obviously is going to be in the game. Vegeta's Super Saiyan 1 stage is shown off, but from what we see here, there's also a couple of moves and poses that imply that he may be at his Super Vegeta form, the Ascended Saiyan form that he took on when he fought off against Semi-Perfect Cell. But for the most part, we see it's just going to be Vegeta. Like, they're keeping it. They've done this before in Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball GT Final Bout, where they had him in a form where he was just Super Saiyan. It was very ambiguous. We didn't know if he was at Super Saiyan 1 or 2. It was just Super Saiyan. His hair doesn't change a lot, and character aesthetic-wise, it's kind of the best way to go about it if you want to market off Vegeta, to just show him off in his Super Saiyan form with some ambiguous hints at him being Super Saiyan 2 or just Ascended Saiyan. They also did this in Ultimate Battle 22 where they just made him Majin. So usually it's the common route to just have him be Super Saiyan. It's a form that's marketable, it's easy to recognize. Then we've got Gohan, Teen Gohan, and his Super Saiyan 2 transformation. This one's an obvious one. This has been in games for a bunch of times. I know Ultimate Battle 22 has him immediately in this form as well. This is a form that Teen Gohan is most known for because it's just his strongest. Fat Buu obviously is in the game. As far as the other Boos, we don't know. Usually when it comes to Dragon Ball, they're a bit weird with which Buu should be in which game. I know in Extreme Budokan, Fat Buu and Kid Buu are in the game, but not Super Buu. He's just a supporting character. So it's not too far off to say that Fat Buu and Kid Buu may make an appearance but not Super Buu, because there's just no point in putting Super Buu in, because he's just sort of like an in-between character for the Fat Buu, which is a good guy, and the Kid Buu, which is the last villain in Dragon Ball Z, so he's the most iconic. We've got Frieza. Frieza obviously is able to transform in a golden form as a temporary transformation and then goes down. So from what we see there will be no costume changes of Frieza to make him look like golden form, because we already have him as a golden form as a temporary transformation. So temporary transformations like Kaioken and golden form Frieza aren't going to be excluded. We also see that what I can see here, I can actually see Frieza having a Frost costume change to make him look like Frost. That way they don't have to have Frost as a separate character, to just go ahead and have Frieza have a Frost costume to save them the trouble. We see Cell, actually we see this in the gameplay footage. We see Cell, and then we also see Cell in what we see as a Cell Jr. costume. So Blue Cell Jr. obviously is going to be there. And then it won't be too far off to say that he may have a super perfect form that's much like Golden Frieza's form, that's a temporary form that allows him to be stronger, faster, and things like that. Piccolo's in the game. I don't think Piccolo's going to have any alternate forms or anything. If anything, I think Piccolo's just going to be as is and have some pretty unique moves. I think Piccolo's actually going to be pretty cool to use, because he might be able to launch a couple of Hail Zone grenade orbs that could stick around in the battle, and you press a button and they all fly in at once. Krillin, he may have an unlocked potential form that serves as a temporary form. But anything outside of that, I don't know. Future Trunks, it's obvious Future Trunks is going to be in the game. We saw him in the trailers, and the way he plays is pretty much how we're going to get him. I don't think he's going to have any alternate forms outside of that. It would be unwise to put an Ultra Super Saiyan form for Trunks, even as a temporary, because it won't do him any good, and he'd be too slow in order to use. If anything, I say using it as like an ultimate move, maybe as an super explosion or something, maybe, but I doubt it. I think they're going to go ahead and stick with standard Super Saiyan Trunks with sword slashing. They've done that in Ultimate Battle 22. They also did it in Final Bout. So I think they're going to just go ahead and stick with that. Now for characters that may be in the game, we've got Android 18. The reason I say this, this has been going on since Supersonic Warriors and Ultimate Battle 22, as well as Dragon Ball Z Takitsu, if anyone ever played that. A lot of fighting games. Android 18 ends up making an appearance, but not Android 17. I don't know why they do this. They do this with this thing where they put Android 18 and 16 in the game, but they exclude 17. Budokai games are the only games that don't do that. But from here, we see that 18 is definitely a big character that can be in the game, and 17 is hinted to be in the game, but those are only rumors, and I don't usually believe rumors until we have a confirmation. So what about 17? Well, in Dragon Ball Super, he's getting a lot of popularity recently, so it's not too far off to say that 18 may get a character costume change that makes her look like 17, and that's probably what's going to be used for that specifically, to get 17 in the game. That way both characters can be in the game without any real... Because to be honest, what is the big difference between 18 and 17? They both look really similar, except one's a girl and one's a boy, but they both have the same setups, so it wouldn't be far off to just have 18 use a couple of 17's moves, and then vice versa, and then just have them go through costume changes. It wouldn't be too far off. And if all else fails, 17 will probably be a support move, or vice versa. 17 may be the one that's in this game, and 18 be a support. Either way it goes, I think both androids could be in the game in theory, but knowing Arc system, they want to save as many character slots as possible, so 17 and 18 may end up just being one character that just shares the same costume. 16 is a sure win for the game because 16 is a heavy set character, and usually games like this need bulky, defensive, heavier characters that don't move as fast. They can get from one frame of the screen to the next and more frames, with them being heavier and more defensive, but them being slower to compensate for that. And Dragon Ball Z doesn't have a lot of heavy set slow characters, so 16 may be a very needed character for that. Then next we've got Gotenks. Obviously Goten and Trunks aren't going to be in the game separately, and Gotenks still fits under the range of character that's just tall enough to be like Teen Gohan. His Super Saiyan transformation will probably be the form that's used the most, with Super Saiyan 3 being a ultimate move trigger. So if he uses Super Ghost Kazakami, he'll probably transform Super Saiyan 3, use the Ghost, blow up, and then that'll be it. Or he'll use his volleyball attack that he's most noticed for. This has been done in Ultimate Battle 22, it was done in Extreme Budokan, it was done in several other games like Supersonic Warriors and things like that. So it's not too far off to say that this will more than likely be what's going to happen. Another character I got up here is Nappa. Nappa, I say Nappa and not Raditz because Dragon Ball doesn't really put Raditz in a lot of games. It's not really known for him to do it. There's no point. Nappa pretty much is there's more to get out of him, and it makes more sense to use Nappa to represent the Saiyan saga because Nappa is a heavy set character, and again, we need those heavy set characters to be in the game for balance. People like using heavier characters that get from one side of the screen to another with more frames than a faster character like Gotenks or Teen Gohan because they're smaller, but they're more bulkier and defensive, they have more health. Makes more sense to put characters like that up there. Then next up we've got Captain Ginyu with the Ginyu Force being used as support moves. So Captain Ginyu can obviously be in the game, but the other Ginyu Force members can be support attacks. So if you want to do a long range energy attack, then you do the button combinations and Jace will come out and use the energy blast. Or for a close range combat move, Captain Ginyu does the attack and then Burter ends up doing like the physical moves. Time Stop could be a counter move that Guldo comes in at the right time, and then for an explosion use like Raycomb, and then finally Captain Ginyu can use Body Switch as his ultimate. I can see all of the Ginyu Force members being used, but Captain Ginyu is the embodiment representation of what will be used to show off each of those moves. Next up on this list that I made up here, we've got Kid Buu. Kid Buu is a small character. He's the last villain in Dragon Ball Z, so he's the most recognizable. It'd make the most sense to use him. Then we've got Adult Gohan. Adult Gohan in his ultimate form. To cut all the BS out of the way, he would more than likely be in ultimate form. It's easy to draw, it's easy to place, His hair will be black, so it won't have to go through that many difficulties. He's a pretty standard character, and he would be a nice character to put in. Then you've got your popular characters, Bardock. Obviously, Bardock would be in the game. And then as a nod off to other things, one of his costume changes that you could probably unlock would be his mask form that he takes on in the Xenoverse games. They'll more than likely probably allow him to be Super Saiyan. That, I really don't know. You have to juggle with the concept, but if we're looking at this through safe lenses, if they want to try to play it safe, I think Bardock will more likely just be in the form that he's in when he fought against the Dodoria and Frieza's forces. Then last on this list, and I'm going to go ahead and end off the list here, and then we'll move on to part 2 the next time I make a video like this. We see Broly. Now with Broly, this depends on if they want to go ahead and include the Universal Survival arc of Dragon Ball Super into Dragon Ball FighterZ, which I don't think they will, only because the saga's still too new. But if they want to include him as a late DLC probably or something, they could do a costume change with Broly to make Kale a costume change and just have them have the same moves. They made Kale use the same moves as Broly in Dragon Ball Super, so it wouldn't be unbelievable that Broly and Kale could be the same character just with costume changes. And Broly and Bardock are two popular characters. They show up in a lot of fighting games. I know they showed up in Super Sonic Warriors 2. I know Bardock shows up in a crap ton of games. Bardock and Broly show up in a lot of the Budokai games. Even if it doesn't, even if they don't need to be, they end up in the games anyway because they're just popular. They show up in a lot of the Xenoverse games. They're just really popular characters, so they're a sure win to be in Dragon Ball FighterZ. But with that said, this is part 1. I'm going to make part 2 in a later date, obviously. What thoughts do you think, what characters do you think will be in Dragon Ball FighterZ? And list some legitimate reasons. Don't just say, oh, I want this, I want O'Reilly in it because it'd be cool. Just, or Baby Trunks. Like, they have to be characters that have some reasoning behind them. Play a couple of Arc System games. Play BlazBlue, Guilty Gear. Learn a lot of that. And then start thinking in that mindset rather than, oh, this character would just be really cool in the game. Like, I know characters like Chaozu won't be in the game because Chaozu's way too small and it wouldn't work out. So, yeah, with that said, what do you think? Try to come up with some legitimate reasons in the comment section. Part 2's coming out soon. I'll see you all then, everybody. Tyrone the God 3 out.